Hello, everyone. Welcome to lunch. We are going to get started, understanding that some of you are still getting your lunch, and that's okay, but we've got a really full hour of great conversation and presentation today, so we don't want to delay any longer. I'm Rachel Myers, and I'm the Executive Director of the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance. We are happy to be a partner on the Housing Washington Conference once again this year. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces, and I think this is our second year back in person. It's just really, really nice to be here with everyone. And wow, congratulations to the commission and to everybody who's worked on this for selling out this conference. This is pretty incredible. I am going to, without delay, introduce our speaker. Oh, and I want to let you know one thing. Out in the lobby after this session, Kevin will be signing copies of his book. You can pick up a book out there, and you can also pick up a book from Stephanie Land, our morning keynote speaker, out there as well. So please take advantage of that. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce Kevin F. Adler. Kevin is a renowned author and humanitarian of great note. Kevin's an award-winning social entrepreneur and the author of the new book, When We Walk By, which is a must-read guide for ending homelessness. Since 2014, he's served as the founder of Miracle Messages, a nonprofit that helps people experiencing homelessness rebuild their social support systems and financial security through family reunification services, a phone buddy program, and the first basic income pilot for unhoused individuals in the US, backed by Google. And as part of a $2.1 million randomized controlled trial led by researchers at USC. Kevin's pioneering work on homelessness and relational poverty has been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, PBS NewsHour, Los Angeles Times, CNN, on a billboard in Times Square, in his TED Talk, and in his groundbreaking and hopeful new book, When We Walk By, Forgotten Humanity, Broken Systems, and the Role We Can Each Play in Ending Homelessness in America. Kevin is also the author of Natural Disasters as a Catalyst for Social Capital, a book that explores how shared traumas can unite or divide communities. An in-demand public speaker, Kevin has given talks at the Commonwealth Club, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and much more. Kevin has been honored as a Presidential Leadership Scholar, TED Resident, Mass Challenge winner, and Rotary Scholar, for which he served 1 year in Oaxaca, Mexico. And prior to his work tackling homelessness, Kevin co-founded 3 education technology startups. It's quite a resume. Please join me in welcoming to our stage Kevin F. Adler.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You're waving. I like that. I appreciate that. I got a wave over there. Any waves over here? Oh my. Now we have to take a selfie. I think we just had a moment. All right, here we go. On this side of the room, let's see how many waves we can get. 1, 2, 3. That's pretty good. This side, oh, this is a few more waves. Oh my gosh. And then how about in the middle? There we go. 1, 2, 3. Well, thanks for having me. See you guys later. No, I'm just joking. Now, it's great to be here with you. How wonderful was Stephanie Land this morning? Just absolutely brilliant. I've loved her books. And yeah, I'm honored to be here with you today. My name's Kevin F. Adler, founder of Miracle Messages, author of When We Walk By. I'm going to stay a little bit afterwards to sign some books if you're interested. So I'll stay in the back and we can have a conversation. But I wanted to start my conversation today with this photo. So if you take a look at this photo, I'd love to hear, just shout out, what do you see going on in this photo? What's happening? Walking by, okay. What do folks are observing? Contrast? A contrast I heard, yeah. Anything else, yeah? Poverty, yeah. So this is an interesting photo. This is actually taken from the New York City Rescue Mission, 2014, where they did an experiment where they had individuals dress up to look homeless as unsuspecting members of their very own families walked by. Every instance of this experiment, not a single person recognized their own son or daughter, brother or sister, husband or wife, or in this lady's case, her mom and her dad. So my starting point in this work is asking a simple question that I invite all of you to think about, and it's, would you recognize your own loved ones on the streets? And I realized for me at the beginning of my journey, the answer is probably not. My story begins with this photo. That's me at the bottom left. It's my grandparents, my mom, my brother. And in the middle there, that's my Uncle Mark. Mark was my favorite member of my extended family. He remembered every birthday. He was the guest of honor at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. He was just a wonderful person. He also suffered from schizophrenia. And for 30 years, my Uncle Mark lived on and off the streets of Santa Cruz. But I never thought of Uncle Mark as a homeless man, because he was just simply my beloved uncle. So one day, I was in college, sophomore year of college, and I got a phone call from my dad, and he was crying. And he told me that Uncle Mark had been found deceased. He was 50 years old at the time, which I later found out is the average life expectancy of a person who's unsheltered, experiencing homelessness. And so, I had a chance years later to sit at the gravesite of my uncle. And I had a really powerful father-son conversation with my dad about what his younger brother, what my uncle meant to him. And why, we got this gravesite we had only visited, years later. What was the significance to even have a plot for Mark? And, he said something that really stuck with me. He said, we wanted to have a final resting place for someone who never had that place of his own in this life. And I thought, that's such a poignant thing, but it doesn't, sitting there, it didn't tell me anything about who this man was and what he meant to me and my family. The stories of every year on the streets, he would send me a birthday card for my birthday. Even when he was on the streets, he sent me a birthday card. He always found a way to send a card. And I just thought, gosh, there's so much in the dash between the year of birth and the year of death, so much life. Is there a way to tell stories of people like my Uncle Mark in a more humanizing way, before they pass away, right? And so I thought about it, and I realized that walking down the street in San Francisco, where I'm based in the Bay Area, I don't see people experiencing homelessness at the time. I didn't see people as someone's son or daughter, or someone's brother or sister, or some kid's beloved uncle or aunt. I saw problems to solve, not people to love. And I got this question on my heart. I pulled out my phone. I was leaving the gravesite with my dad, and I start scrolling, and I had this realization that I'm learning more on social media about my random friends and acquaintances and classmates from years ago than I did about my own uncle at his grave. So I got this question on my heart. I'm a person of faith, and this question has guided some of the work that I've done since, and it was simple. It was, how would Jesus use a smartphone? And whatever your faith tradition or no faith tradition is, how could we use the storytelling tools that we have in a more humanizing way? So I thought about it, prayed about it, and I got this insight of what I might want to do, which was a bit unorthodox, I have to tell you, where I committed a year to get to know my neighbors experiencing homelessness as neighbors by inviting 24 individuals who are unhoused over the course of the year to wear GoPro cameras around their chests and narrate their experience of what life is like on the streets. And the basic premise was simple. I just walked by you. You're still here. What's it like to be you? What do you wish all of us knew as passersby? And I actually think we have a video of one of the first recordings from a man named Adam of that little storytelling project. So I'd like to play that here for you now.
My name's Adam Reichert. I'm living in San Francisco. I've been homeless on and off for almost 6 years now. For most people that are homeless, I hear it from friends and I see it, don't have any type of real interaction that means anything to them. when you're homeless because people treat you so much different.
About 90% of these people could care less about standing in front of them or not, you know. I mean, most of them would not want to see me would rather not see me at all out there. And when I say that, I don't mean see me out here being homeless. They would just rather not see me out here at all. You know, and it's, I guess, the way the side is turned, where they look at me like I'm below them or something like that, and they don't realize it. Like I said earlier, that, you know, a lot of people that I know right here in this neighborhood, in Castro, are living paycheck to paycheck, wondering if they're gonna be housed next week. How you doing, folks? Tomorrow's my birthday. I'm trying to get a hotel. I'll go and get a paper. See what I mean?
So I watched dozens and dozens of hours of pretty heartbreaking footage. And two things stood out, two things that really stuck with me. So first, every time a parent, someone would walk by with a child, a young person, the young person would never just walk by. They always would tug at mom and dad's sleeve, point, stare. Why is that man on the streets? What's going on? And you know, half the time you'd see the parent almost like scold the kid for being rude. We don't do that, that's impolite. But the other half the time, you'd see the parent almost let the kid guide them to the person, right? And have a conversation. And I just remember thinking, gosh, you know, 20 years from now, which children are gonna maybe grow up to more trusting adults? The second thing that really stuck out was every single time I met someone on the streets, they wouldn't just talk about themselves, they'd talk about their children, or their siblings, or their parents, or relatives, or partners, classmates, coaches, mentors, neighbors, friends. And often the folks that they talked about were no longer in their life, but they were still in their heart. They're still in their mind. And so I thought, you know, maybe there's something to this. In one conversation with a man named Adam, who was featured there in the video, he said something that was just so insightful, it actually went on to change my life. And this is what he said. I never realized I was homeless when I lost my housing, only when I lost my family and friends. I never realized I was homeless when I lost my housing, only when I lost my family and friends. You know, this made sense to me at this kind of gut level, but I'd never heard any homeless service providers, government agencies talk about what I've come to call relational poverty as an overlooked form of poverty. Isolation, loneliness, disconnection. And so I thought, if this is true, maybe I could just walk down the street, go up to everyone I see who's visibly homeless and say, hey, do you have any family or friends you'd like to reconnect to, right? So December 2014, not knowing what I didn't know, grabbed some biscuits and some waters and walked the street of San Francisco and just went up to everyone I saw who was visibly homeless. And that's how I met Jeffrey. And Jeffrey initially didn't want to give me the time of day, kind of was talking to himself a little bit, like, you know, you could see there's a bottle there, it's like, there's substance. I kind of didn't get the sense that he wanted to engage. But I thought, okay, I had promised I was gonna offer this to anyone, everyone. Let me just say, do you have any family or friends you'd like to reconnect to? And when I asked him that question, it was the first time he looked me right in the eye. And he said, well, my dad, Harold, my sister, my niece and nephew, I haven't seen them in a long time. I'd love your help if you can. So I didn't know what to do, right? Decided to pull out my phone and invite him to record a short video message to his family. And this is actually the first video that Jeffrey recorded.
My name is Jeffrey Michael Gottschall. I was born August 7th, 1969 in a small town in Pennsylvania named Georgeville.
Are there any friends that you would like to send a holiday message?
In Pennsylvania,
In
Georgeville,
Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, if you can.
Well, like what are their names?
My dad, Harold.
What would you like to say to your dad?
I intend to come home and see you again someday.
Okay, so I get this video, don't know what to do with it, go home, and that night, the truth is, I did nothing. I just sat on it because at the time, I didn't know if I could trust Jeffrey. I didn't know If there was like some backstory, I didn't want to get involved, right? So I kind of started from a place of a lot of prejudice on this issue. I wasn't as open-hearted as I've tried to become now. But I sat on it for a week, and it felt like it was like burning a hole in my pocket, right? You got to do something. So finally, a few days later, I get on Facebook and do an internet search on Facebook and found a Facebook group connected to Jeffrey's hometown. I posted the video there with a short note, and within 1 hour, it went viral. It made the local news that night as the leading story. Classmates started commenting and saying, hey, I went to high school with Jeffrey. I work in construction. Does he need a job? I work at the congressman's office. Does he need health care? Someone posted a photo of his high school yearbook photo from high school and talked about being friends in high school. And in the first 20 minutes of the post, his sister got tagged. We got on the phone the next day, and she told me that Jeffrey had been a missing person for 12 years. In broad daylight, downtown San Francisco, a few days before Christmas. So this was her video to her brother.
To get you home and the help that you need once you're here. My holiday message to you is this: if you don't give up, I won't either.
A few days after that, we were able to get them reconnected on a phone call for the first time in 22 years. And a few months after that, they got reconnected in person, and they were able to reunite. Now, did this magically, in one fell swoop, solve all of Jeffrey's problems? No, right? This is not a silver bullet to end homelessness. But having the relationships, having people to talk to, having a lifeline, having caseworkers, social workers have a support system that they can reach out to was able to make a significant difference. And through that conversation, I decided to do something kind of crazy, is basically started doing this work full time. And that was 10 years ago, because I realized when we think about poverty, we often think of financial poverty, a lack of financial resources. But there's also this other aspect of poverty that Adam was speaking about, which I've come to call relational poverty, a lack of nurturing relationships, social support systems. And I want to just, if there's only one message that I leave here today, it's relational poverty is poverty. Who among us would be where we're at or have gotten through the hard times that we've gone through if it weren't for family, friends, community, faith-based groups, getting us through? And in fact, when we actually listen to our neighbors experiencing homelessness and hear the reasons that they cite and attribute for why they're experiencing homelessness, what the causes are, 1 out of every 3, as many as 1 out of every 3 individuals cite some form of relational brokenness, a falling out, argument with a housemate or a loved one, a death of a family member, a case of domestic violence or an LGBTQ youth not being able to stay in an unsafe home environment, right? But these are different forms of relational breakdowns, brokenness. And once a person becomes homeless, this was the most heartbreaking sign I've ever seen on the street. I promise you, this whole talk will not just be like tissues and sad, okay? But let's start with this reality. This was the most heartbreaking sign I've ever seen on the street. At least give me the finger. Like, I can't fathom, God forbid, experience homelessness and getting to a place where I'd rather have a middle finger in my face than what I'm currently getting, which is totally ignored. Supportive relationships have been linked to better health outcomes, lower rates of victimization, stronger housing stability, and less time homeless. When we think about housing first, great, best practice, it's not housing only. It's a 5-pillared strategy. The 5th pillar is community integration, but it's often seen as an afterthought. And so just as one example outside of our work at Miracle Messages, this is from the City and County of San Francisco, where I've lived for the last few years. This is the shelter exits between 2015 and 2019. And if you can look here, 60% of successful shelter exits, 60% of those who leave the shelter and then end up housed and accounted for, rather than either unsheltered, unhoused, and unaccounted for, 60% were as a result of family and friend reunifications. 30% were as a result of permanent housing, and 10% were as a result of temporary placements. And finally, on this relational poverty piece, we're talking about people experiencing homelessness, falling into homelessness, the isolation that it can create. We have this question a lot of you probably have had to answer in your work. Raise your hand if you've ever heard someone say, why are so many people homeless? Why are so many people experiencing homelessness? Does anyone get that question? Yeah? Or what are the causes of homelessness, right? It's an important question, right? Equally important question that we never hear. With 1 out of every 2 Americans, 1 paycheck away from not being able to pay rent. 40% of people in this country not knowing where they'd get $400 for an unexpected emergency. We almost have to ask another question, why isn't half the country homeless? Why aren't more people experiencing homelessness? And what we're finding is family, friends, community, informal economy, relationships, social capital, doubled up, tripled up, a little bit of financial support when you need it most. And yet we don't prioritize this aspect of relational poverty. But not anymore, because we decided at Miracle Messages this is the work that we got to do. And so I decided after reconnecting Jeffrey with his loved one to quit my job. And my dad's like, what's your job now? How are you making money? I'm like, I'm a social entrepreneur. He's like, oh, so you're unemployed. Okay, great. And I decided to start doing this work full time because I knew Jeffrey wasn't the only one and this shouldn't be happening. So I'd like to share a little bit about our work at Miracle Messages. Our vision is really to meet people where they're at and not leave them there, and then partner widely. We have volunteers and staff members like Gabby Cordell in South Florida who do outreach. We work with partner sites to make referrals. And it's not just like me wandering the streets with a smartphone, blasting things out on social media. That's long past. We now use technology to do some really effective things kind of behind the scenes. So that's our hotline number, 1-800-MISS-YOU. I have cards here that I'll give you if you're interested. I got married a few months ago. I was waiting for that. Thank you. Yeah, I was waiting for that. I got married a few months ago, and there's a period where I can't tell well, this is being recorded. She'll know it now. I knew 1-800-MISS-YOU before I memorized my own wife's phone number. Like, this is a memorable phone number, right? But 1-800-MISS-YOU, a person experiencing homelessness or a caseworker or social worker on their behalf can call 1-800-MISS-YOU or go to 1-800-MISS-YOU.org or miraclemessages.org and fill out an online form or paper form and help someone that they're working with access some of our services. And then a message comes in, and we don't just blast it on social media, put it on a Facebook group anymore, right? There's opportunities for voyeurism and exploitation if this work isn't done well, right? And we're kind of considerate about that. So we have a network of volunteer digital detectives who make phone calls, write letters, do internet sleuthing for good. So here's my recruiting pitch if you want to be a digital detective. How many of you here, raise of hands, have a teenage son or daughter? Okay, I know you're really good at doing internet searches because you're like, who are you going out with on Friday? What's their name? What's their social security number, right? And then, so we need your skill set as digital detectives. And through that effort, we've reunited over 1,000 people experiencing homelessness with their loved ones. Thank you. We see remarkable outcomes from those reunions, and we also do the service in reverse. So families reach out to us and say, hey, my brother, my son, my daughter, I haven't seen them in years or decades. Can you help me find them? I think they're homeless in a community. That's where we created our Find Them service, where families reach out to us, and we've actually been able to do about 130 of these needle in a haystack missing person searches. It's very difficult, but it requires a lot of partnerships, a lot of collaboration. And that's our Find Them program. Now, you might be sitting, there's a few skeptics here, and you're like, what is this? You know, what's going on? Family, friends, okay, but what if family is part of the problem, not part of the solution? Bridges have been burned. There's cases of abuse, trauma. There's many situations where it's totally inappropriate to try to reconnect to someone, to their loved ones, or maybe they don't have loved ones, or the loved ones are about in the same position as the person experiencing homelessness, right? We just said 1 out of 2 people are a paycheck away from not paying rent. So if family's not part of the solution, part of the problem, how are you addressing relational poverty? So that's what led us to create our second program, which is called Miracle Friends. We match everyday volunteers all around the world as phone buddies to have weekly phone calls and text messages, kind of like a digital pen pal. Our volunteers have logged over 250,000 minutes, one-to-one phone calls and text messages with their friends. And I'm excited in a moment here to share a few stories from that program. This was a quote from one of our volunteers. They said, "Well, I cannot take any credit for his recent successes," speaking of his unhoused friend. He said, "I can tell you nonetheless, when we started this journey together a few weeks ago, he was so depressed, despondent, and lonely that he was actually texting himself, like sending messages to himself from one of his, relational poverty is poverty. Relational poverty is poverty. That's all I can say. So we've started with doing outreach. Volunteers, we're looking at different models of chapters and how to work in different communities. We tried to create this like kiosk, self-serve system. That didn't work well. Does anyone use the self-checkout line at the supermarket? There's always like, yeah, you do, sir. There's always that one person who's like working for the store for every 3 or 4 because the red lights are always going off. We tried to do like this self-serve intake at a shelter. It didn't work. It was a bad idea. Sometimes Silicon Valley has bad ideas. We should acknowledge that. But what we had is people calling us on a phone number, said, if you have any questions, call this number. And they said, hey, can you help me? We need, I'd like your services. And that's what led us to create the 1-800-MISS-YOU program. And I just wanted to share that for a moment because we're still figuring this out. This is a work in progress. How do we offer support services for relationships to folks around the country? Is it an incentive thing, an integration, asking questions around family, assessing for social support, relational poverty, local chapters, online outreach? I just wanted to kind of mention that we're still figuring that out, invite feedback and conversations afterwards around that. But first, I wanted to read something, and I have something special here to share with all of you. So I wanted to read a chapter from, not a whole chapter, a page from my book. We're going to dinner, right? So after 10 years ago, I thought, I have nothing to do with this. I don't know anything about homelessness. 10 years later, wrote this book. And I realized for me, it wasn't homelessness that really drew me into this work, even though my uncle had the experience of homelessness. It was my basic belief that every single person is intrinsically valuable and that we're all interconnected. And it just so happens that our neighbors experiencing homelessness are not seen as valuable and they're not seen as interconnected. It's us and them. And that just bothered me at a very basic level, So I wrote the book, and I'll be signing books afterwards. I wanted to just read a page from a chapter here about some of the mythology on work, how people think work can get you out of homelessness, even though I think the stats are 45% of people experiencing homelessness have some form of employment or income, and another 40% are on disability. So I'm just going to read this little bit. You can, gather around here. After finishing his afternoon shift at McDonald's, Gabe, a soft-spoken, heavy-set teenager with a boyish smile, stepped into the restroom to bathe himself, using the sink as best he could. After freshening up, he walked out to the edge of the parking lot where Lainey, his mom and best friend, was sitting in their old pickup truck. Gabe smiled meekly and gave his mom a quick hug. For Gabe and Lainey, the truck was more than a vehicle. It was their home, the place where they slept, ate, occasionally argued, lived in San Jose, California, the second most expensive rental market in the country. It was where Gabe did his schoolwork, stretched for high school wrestling meets, texted his friends, contemplated his future, and returned each day after his shift at McDonald's. This was the paradox of Gabe's young life, a teenager who who spent most days after school serving Big Macs and McFlurries only to rarely have enough to eat himself. In the United States, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, a loving mother and son like Lainey and Gabe, who both work hard and have jobs, may still not make enough money to afford stable housing together. When I met Lainey, it was 10 years ago, at a shelter in San Jose. Initially, she was interested in our family and friend reunification services. And this was the video that she recorded to her father.
I'd like to record a message to my dad.
Okay.
You know, I haven't spoken with my dad in 10 years.
What's his name?
Philip.
Okay.
Philip Barker.
Yeah.
And I really miss him.
Where was the last time you saw him?
Last time I heard, he was living in Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
And I don't know where he is now.
Okay.
I heard somewhere that he's out in Sacramento.
Okay.
I just, you know, I want to be able to get a hold of him and talk to him and let him know that I love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I miss my dad.
Yeah.
He was my biggest. He's like my angel, you know. My dad was my angel. He's always been there for me.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, this is why we're here. So, you know, I mean, I know it's tough, and, you know, I mean, that's why we're here, and this is how we want to help. And so, you know, if hopefully we can find him and we can deliver this for you, you know, that's what we'd love to do.
I've tried finding my dad.
Yeah.
You know, online and.
Yeah. Can you tell us anything more about him? Where did he grow up? And you know, what was his full name?
Philip Norton Barker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where was he from originally?
He was from the Bay Area.
Okay.
He moved up to Spokane, Washington when I was like 15.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, you know, he came down here a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've seen him a couple of times, and then he just like disappeared, and you know, he stopped contacting me.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can find him. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
So we tried to look for her dad, and we weren't able to find him, but Gabe, Lainey's son, was. He was able to do some detective work, find through some contacts, was able to find Lainey's father, and help the two of them get reconnected, which is really special. Thank you. And this is where Lainey and Gabe were at when I first met them. This was in the parking lot of the McDonald's where they lived. That's the Golden Arches, right? And they showed me, you know, their walk, Gabe going into McDonald's to work, to freshen up, and then sleeping in the parking lot of the McDonald's that night. And that was his commute to work and work, you know, going to school at the time. And this was the, you know, truck where they slept and argued, kind of that I mentioned in the book there, chapter 7, and where most of their life was. But the thing about Lainey and Gabe that, you know, they became dear friends of mine, and just two of the most resilient spirits I've ever met. And you think, you know, with different resources and, okay, these individuals experiencing homelessness, I just felt such a gift and so much that I learned and grew from the relationship with both of them. So this was, you know, 10 years ago. I had less gray hair at the time, but we've been in touch ever since. We've maintained a friendship, and I've seen, and I chronicle it in the books, the ups and downs of opportunity, meeting a new person, moving in together, and then it doesn't quite work out, or it only lasts for a while. Different service providers, system breakdowns, all encapsulated in just a few stories that I tried to share. This was Lainey with her dad, Gabe with her dad, with Grandpa, or Gabe with Grandpa. And then this photo was one that they shared with me. That's Gabe as a young boy, the second there. I even have a laser pointer. Look at that. There's Gabe. And it's just so reminiscent of the photo I shared of my family at the beginning. You know, and I think but for the grace of God go I or any of us. But for the grace of God go any of us. This was the Christmas that they spent in their car, not too far from here. Slept in a car, cold Christmas day, but you could see still had the holiday cheer on their face. And Lainey was able to get into our Miracle Friends program, and then Gabe joined our Miracle Friends program. That's how Rebecca and Lainey got connected, and they just became very dear friends, having conversations, supporting each other. It's not a one-way street. Support each other as things go up and down. They brought Rebecca over to cook for her because Gabe went to culinary school and is an amazing chef. And they were playing Uno and just had a wonderful time. So I have some special guests today. Let's welcome Lainey and Gabe. Do you want the chair? Okay.
Hi, everybody. I just want to first off start by saying thank you for having me and Gabriel here, and it's an honor. But nerves are kind of high right now, but I'm going to try and get through this. But homelessness, to me, it was a very tough thing. As you saw, we were sleeping in our vehicle. And when people would, go by us or whatever, we'd ask for help because we were hungry. They just, they would tell us we're lazy or, go get a job, or little did they know that we had a job. So, yeah, it's rough.
Hello, how's it going?
Hi, Gabe.
So again, like my mother said, I want to say thank you for inviting us out here to speak on behalf of Kevin. It is a great honor. Being homeless, I sit back and look at everything that I went through with my mom. And I wasn't even homeless just with my mom. I was also homeless with my grandmother, and we stayed with my brother's friend. So I've been in and out of homelessness most of my life. But looking back on it now, I can laugh at all the experiences that I had, even when we lived at McDonald's and we asked people for help. Some days we wouldn't eat, and on those days we'd actually end up going into McDonald's, grabbing a lid and sit at a table, and we ate ketchup as dinner. And now that we are in our place, sometimes we'll face the inevitable of running out of food stamps, and we'll not have that much food left. And I'll occasionally joke and say, hey, you want some ketchup for dinner? So just looking back at all those experiences, it's really honestly humbled me. I've ran into quite a few homeless people even while we were still homeless, and I gave pretty much everything that I had, even when I didn't have anything. Just because I know that they need it more than I do. So, and I want to say, because of Kevin trying to help us locate our grandpa, it gave me the courage and the belief that I could find him. And I did by finding out that my uncle, her older brother, still talked to him. And I always told her that I would find him for her birthday. And that happened. And when we found out he was up here in Washington, just a few hours away, we decided to make a surprise trip. And that was the last time that I was able to see my grandpa before he passed away. But knowing that I was able to see him did bring in some closure that he still loved us. And no matter how far apart we are from our families, that we will always have somebody there to believe in us.
Wow. That's so good. Man, I so lied to all of you about not crying throughout the talk. Jeez, you guys. So I just want to ask, like, what's going on now in your life? If you can share a little bit about your current situation and yeah.
Yeah, so as of right now, we are in our place for a year and a half now.
All right.
Going strong. I was fighting to get onto disability for 2.5 years, 3 years, and finally got approved, which has helped secure our rent. But it wasn't without the help of our church out in Staten, where we live, who helped us get into our place and helped keep us in our place. And after we moved into our place, I started culinary arts school at Augusta Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. And on July 3rd, I graduated with my diploma.
I'm a proud mother. For me, once we leave here and we go back to Oregon, I will be starting at Augusta Escoffier as well to further my culinary education as associates and business in business management.
Anything else you'd like to share, like people to know, or are you?
Yeah, we're good.
You're good? Okay. Yeah, you can have a seat then, too. That's good, okay. And I wanted to just say, I have the next slide, I think, here. Lainey and Gabe, this is why we do what we do, right? This is, like, you two are just such incredible human beings. You've enriched my life. And there may be one more surprise coming up. So we'll see. So you guys you're okay for a minute here? Sure. Okay. Let's give one more round of applause to Lainey and Gabe. So I said there was going to be a surprise. And we talked about this ahead of time, so it's not a total surprise. You guys are like, you're awful, Kevin. You're bringing all these surprises. I was in New York yesterday. Had a chance to give a talk in New York. And Lainey's friend, Rebecca, is based in New York, and she wanted to record a little message about her friend. Hey, Gabe and Lainey. I'm here in New York City. Well, actually, I'm here right now in Spokane with you. You just gave a magical talk. But I wanted to introduce you to a friend that doesn't need any introduction to you. Little surprise.
Hello. Wonderful to say hello to you. I'm so proud of you guys and excited for you and happy to continue seeing our friendship evolve.
Okay.
Love you.
And let me just ask, you've known Lainey for a while. What are some of the qualities that you think of when you think of Lainey and Gabe?
Oh my goodness. The most big-hearted people you could ever meet. Super warm, friendly, great sense of humor. We're always laughing. And the number one thing that I always tell them is how resilient they are. And it really blows me away.
Year to hear, but we all know that now. So, all right, here with Rebecca. She's got to get on a call. I have to go. Thanks. Okay. And now I didn't go to Austin, Texas. Yes, I'm going to Houston later today, so it's a lot of craziness right now. But I didn't want Gabe to feel left out, of course. So here's a message from Hansi, who's a volunteer as a student at UT Austin and recorded this for Gabe.
Hi, Gabe. I just want to say how grateful I am to be your miracle friend, and shout out to Miracle Messages for connecting us in the first place. And I just want to say thank you for always trusting me with your story. You and your mom are such an inspiration to me, and talking to you always feels like such a bundle of joy and comfort. And I think my favorite part about talking to you is how you always try to see the positive and good in things. And even when I'm having a bad day, just talking to you, hearing your voice, and feeling your presence just makes me feel better, and it comforts me. And I'm just so grateful for that. And also, it's been such an honor learning cooking recipes and tips and tricks from you. I hope to one day try your delicious food that you always send me pictures of. And it's been such a pleasure being your friend. And I just want to say how incredibly proud I am of you and your mom. I'm eternally grateful for you for coming into my life. Thank you so much, and I love you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Have fun.
And you haven't met Hansi yet, so hopefully someday. But again, this is 20 minutes, 30 minutes a week. Phone calls, text messages, and a couple-month commitment. And we have volunteers around the country doing this. And part of what we're talking about today is homelessness. But I think the other part we're talking about is the rest of us housed people too, and our relationship with our unhoused neighbors and people who've had lived experience. So I wanted to just share one last bit about our work as we start getting ready to close. We had all these friendships form, and we had people in our Phone Buddy program, and at some point we started hearing from volunteers saying, hey, you've asked me to be friends with a person, and we're friends. We trust each other. We love each other. We've built a bond, but it's very hard for us to feel like good about the friendship, an equal footing, if my friend doesn't know what they're going to do to get food tonight and have dinner, or they don't know how they're going to get gas to get back to work on Monday. Like, I can't just sit by and watch as my friend experiences this. Like, relational poverty is poverty. Poverty is poverty too, right? Can you help? Either you're helping or we're helping. And we didn't want to put the expectation on the volunteers to do that. So December 2020, we created what turned out to be the first basic income pilot for individuals experiencing homelessness in the United States. Initially, we raised $10,000. That went up to $50,000. $500 a month for 6 months, no strings attached. We invited all the volunteers in our Phone Buddy program to nominate their friends. 80 nominations, we only had 14 slots because of the funds. but we picked 14 individuals. Everyone got $500 a month, no strings attached. Within 6 months, 2/3 of those unhoused individuals had secured stable housing. They used the money better than I could have used it for them. And so money was spent on food security, housing, mental and physical health. This is you can see this all on our website, miraclemessages.org. And in fact, the first person who received money from us was a woman named Elizabeth. She made a donation to Miracle Messages as her first thing. And I said, you didn't need to do this. This wasn't expected. She said, well, I didn't do it for you. I did it for myself, so I can once again feel the dignity of supporting the causes that I believe in. And so from that, we've been able to develop from our network of supporters a $2.1 million randomized controlled trial, where we're giving out $750 a month for 12 months to over 100 unhoused neighbors across the state of California, no strings attached. Thank you. And we're working with researchers at USC to do the research part of that, and Google.org as a primary funder, but other great organizations. We should have the results by year's end. We're very excited about that and exploring how we can expand giving people money directly. Over $1 million has been distributed through that program. I've mentioned how, the numbers. 60%, we've seen in the midterm report, this isn't final results yet. In midterm report, the treatment group, the group getting $750 a month compared to the group getting no funds, 60% drop in unsheltered homelessness from 30% to 12%. Control group went from 28% to 23%, which was not statistically significant. 2 times more likely to exit homelessness compared to the control group. Don't know what the final results will be, but very promising, very exciting, and excited to invest more resources in this program. That's led to a lot of narrative change, storytelling work, people covering this work and trying to change the narrative of homelessness. So that's a bit about our work at Miracle Messages. And I wanted to just announce today we have decided to create a new program called the Dignity Fund. And the Dignity Fund is going to be for individuals who are currently in our Phone Buddy program to give them a few $100s a month, no strings attached, as participants in that Phone Buddy program to help kind of ease some of the burden, homeless or housed, they're in the program. And I'd like to announce today that Gabe and Lainey are going to be our first recipients of the Dignity Fund. So. I told them ahead of time, so again, it's fine. So that's the work we do. There's stories like that and more in the book. Really, the thesis of the book is that homelessness is, broken systems, but it's also breakdowns in our shared humanity. We can talk about the intersection of housing, foster care, criminal justice system, criminal justice system, mental health, physical health, income inequality. 3,000 counties in the United States. Not a single county where someone who's working full-time at the federal minimum wage can afford the fair market value of a 2-bedroom apartment. Less than 1% of those counties where that same person can afford a 1-bedroom apartment, working full-time. So we talk about the systems that lead to homelessness, and there's lots of systems. It's a housing issue, but it's more than just a housing issue. There's a lot of intersectionality. 1/3 of foster care youth who age out of foster care experience homelessness by the time they're 26 years old. And for Black young kids in the foster care, that number goes up to 60%. 60% of young Black kids who age out of foster care end up homeless by the time they're 26. This is unacceptable. But then there's this other side to it about what we talk about relational poverty, otherizing, stigma, shame, rugged individualism, where we think if you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps, what's wrong with you? Have you failed? It's not individuals that have failed, it's systems, it's society. So that's the work we do. And then there's the last 100 pages is just about solutions. And there's 13 stories, 14 stories, just like Gabe and Lainey's throughout the book that really anchors it. I'm going to stay to sign books afterwards. And I just want to close. I've done about 70 talks now on the book tour, kind of traveling around a little bit. And these are the most common questions I get. Is homelessness a choice? Is it a lifestyle? Are homeless people dangerous? Are they all drug addicts? Are they mentally ill? Should I give them money? Is it due to the nice weather? Do we know the answer to these questions, that this is a load of you know what, right? And yet this is where most people right now are on the issue of homelessness. And I think in the same way we can't dehumanize our neighbors experiencing homelessness, we can't otherize people who aren't in this room. We have to start with where they're at, what questions they have, but then share stories and programs like, hearing from Gabe and Lainey, who it's like, these are individuals we must invest in through relational, financial resources and housing of all types. So I wanted to just share that with you. And I love this quote from Jennifer in the book. She said, "With all due respect, what I'm hearing today is everyone's offering seats at the table. It's not their table. Please don't get into the savior complex and invite me to sit at your table. In fact, it's my table, and I'm not asking for a seat. It was already and is always now my seat. I'm the one who experienced all this trauma and turmoil. I know what the problems are and what I need. I built it. There would be no table without me. I invite you to come sit at my table and let's have a conversation." Is that not good? The best thing I've ever done in this work, one thing that's allowed me to feel a level of comfortable to even write a book and do this work, is I started from a premise of I don't know. I don't know anything about this issue. I had an uncle I loved. And everything has emerged from conversations and interactions with the true heroes of this story, which are these two. Brian Stevenson talks about, from the Equal Justice Initiative, the importance of proximity. And I think we have to go more than proximate. We have to get relational. I'm not going to ask you all this question, but usually at the start of my talk or the end of my talk, if I'm doing a talk at a college campus or a civic group, I ask two questions. I say, how many of you know someone, or I blew it. How many of you care about the issue of homelessness? And every single hand goes up, right? And then the second question, how many of you know someone who's currently experiencing homelessness? As a friend, a neighbor, it's never more than about 5% of people that say they know someone experiencing homelessness. That to me is part of the issue. We can't work on this issue. Imagine any other issue, but we don't have people at the table who have that lived experience, and we have relationships to draw on, to listen to. So my view is no one should go through homelessness, but if it's going to be a thing, and it's going to be a thing for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, no one should go through homelessness alone. It should not be a fundamentally isolating, otherizing experience. And just as important, none of us housed people should be helpless on this issue. There's too much good work to do. And finally, when we see our unhoused neighbors, as a reminder, not problems to solve, but people to love. Because when we love people, problems get solved, right? All right, that's it. Get involved, volunteer, donate, follow us. That goes to our website. I'm just so grateful to be here. Thank you all so very much. And Gabe and Lainey too, come on. Thank you. Yeah, you do. I know. Thanks so much. All right, bro. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin, for a very powerful story. And thank you, Gabe and Lainey, for sharing your life journey with us. It's very powerful. And to Kevin and to Lainey and Gabe, just know that there's 866 people who signed up for this housing conference. We are committed to the process of making housing more affordable and services available to people who are our neighbors, our friends, and our loved ones. So please remember that after this lunch, there'll be a book signing right outside this door here. Kevin will be there, and he'll be able to sign your book and answer questions. And a few housekeeping notes. This afternoon, we have a host of additional sessions before meeting at the Doubletree Ballroom for our annual Friends of Housing celebration. And folks, we're gonna celebrate our winners in style with appetizers, music, and friendship throughout the evening. It's gonna be a wonderful opportunity to enjoy one of these rare times we could all get together and have fun, to enjoy mixing and mingling and celebrating together and honoring our colleagues. And by the way, I haven't heard, where is karaoke tonight? Where are we having karaoke at? Globe? The Globe? The Globe, the Globe. Karaoke's at the Globe. Please be there on time. Don't party too hard so you can't join us tomorrow morning on time for breakfast and some more celebrations. And we have a leader in AI from the University of Southern California doing a presentation. The morning tech talk is before our opening plenary. Come for breakfast and take a dive into this exciting technology before joining us for Benjamin Jealous, who I've heard speak 4 times in my life, the former head of the NAACP, for our keynote address. So let's go out and make changes in this world.